Knock knock, who's there? Wetlands are areas that are covered with water seasonally or permanently and provide beneficial services to the environment. One of these benefits include a habitat, providing homes for plants and animals. Wetlands support their own unique community of plants and animal species, which is dependent on the type of wetland. These species may be threatened, endangered, and endemic. There are several wetlands within Jamaica. However, there are those with international importance that are a part of the Convention on Wetlands of International Importance, or the Ramsar Convention. This is an intergovernmental treaty with an aim to encourage the conservation and wise use of wetlands and their resources. There are 4 sites in Jamaica with a combined area of 37,847 hectares designated as Ramsar sites. These are Palisadoes, Port Royal, Black River Lower Morass in St. Elizabeth, Portland Bight Protected Area spanning St. Catherine and Clarendon, Mason River Protected Area, Clarendon, co-managed by and operated by the Natural History Museum of Jamaica. Let's take a closer look at the biodiversity found in the Mason River Protected Area and Portland Bight Protected Areas. Do you know any plants and animals that are found in these wetlands? Knock knock, who's there? The Mason River Protected Area. The Mason River Protected Area is located at the border of Clarendon and St. Anne. It is an inland peat bog consisting of a flattish area with several surface depressions, ponds, and sinkholes that seasonally store surface water. Here are 3 types of plants and animals that can be found in this unique wetland. Sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss that is found growing here is special. It can hold 40 times its weight in water. During World War I, sphagnum moss was used to bandage wounds because of its ability to hold fluids and its purported antiseptic properties. The pitcher plant, which was introduced in 1969 from the United States, is carnivorous and gets most of its nutrients from capturing insects that crawl into the top of the pitcher. These get caught and are ingested. The prickly pole. This palm tree is endemic to Jamaica. The leaves and trunk have very sharp needle-like prickles that the tree grows for protection. We have animals that are found at the Mason River Protected Area. Let's look at 3. The Connecticut warbler. This American songbird is not native to Jamaica, but it is a stopover visitor, as it makes its lengthy winter migration to South America from the USA. It is said to be one of the hardest birds to find. The first ever reported sighting of the Connecticut warbler in Jamaica was at the Mason River Protected Area Game Sanctuary and Ramsar site. Dragonflies are spectacular, flashy, and expert flyers due to their incredible ability to fly straight up, straight down, hover just like a helicopter, and mate mid-air. A dragonfly will starve to death if it cannot fly, because dragonflies can only eat prey that are caught while flying. Their eggs are laid in and around water bodies, which makes the Mason River Reserve an ideal habitat. The Jamaican Callisto is an endemic butterfly located all across Jamaica. Adults are usually low-flying. eye-like markings or eye spots found on the wings of some butterflies, such as the Jamaican calistro, are said to help butterflies to intimidate predators as well as deflect an attack. Knock knock, who's there? The Portland Bight Protected Area. The Portland Bight Wetlands and Keys is a protected area located in St. Catherine and Clarendon along the south coast of the island, just west of Kingston. It is 24,542 hectares with 8,000 hectares of coastal mangroves, among the largest contiguous mangrove stands remaining in Jamaica, as well as a salt marsh, several rivers, offshore keys, coral reefs, seagrass beds, and open water. As a result, the area is home to many animal species. Mangroves are a group of shrubs and tree species that live along shores, rivers, and estuaries in the tropics and subtropics. Mangroves are remarkably resilient and most live on muddy soil, but some also grow on sand, peat, and coral rock. They live in water up to 100 times saltier than most other plants can tolerate. The magnificent frigate bird. Their body is black, with the males having a red chest which is filled with air to attract females during the mating season, while the females have a white chest. Frigate birds are referred to as kleptoparasites, as they occasionally rob other seabirds for food and are known to snatch seabird chicks from the nest. They also feed by harassing other birds such as terns, gulls, and pelicans to steal their fish or until they regurgitate their meal while it catches it in midair. The brown noddy. The brown noddy is a tropical seabird with a worldwide distribution, including the Caribbean. Its body is dark in color with a distinct white color on its head and straight tail. This species is sexually dimorphic, meaning that the males and females are different in appearance, such as the males, which are larger than the females. The American crocodile is Jamaica's largest reptile. They can be found in tropical and subtropical regions, living in wetlands, rivers, and lakes. The American crocodile is endangered and protected by law. It is gray, green, or olive green in color, with a long, slender snout that is V-shaped in comparison to the American alligator. Crocodiles help to keep waterways clear from being stagnant and clean by eating the carcasses or remains of animals found in the water. The American crocodile also helps to maintain a balance in the food web and wetland ecosystem by keeping aquatic animal populations in check.
All right, so that was our introduction into the wetlands. And again, I extend a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us this afternoon. My name is Eartha Cole. I'm the Education Outreach Officer at the Natural History Museum of Jamaica. I would like to now turn our attention to our next segment, which our host will take over from, and I'm just going to introduce you to her at this time. So Dainalyn Swaby is a development communication specialist and climate change advocate. In her professional and volunteer roles, she has developed and supported several climate-focused youth engagement campaigns and research projects on a local and international level. She has represented Jamaica and the Caribbean. sharing country experiences, and participating in climate change fora globally. A 2019 Chevening Scholar, Dainalyn holds a Master's in Arts degree in Global Communication and Development from Loughborough University, London. Dainalyn is a 2021 Global Youth Climate Network Ambassador and the creator and host of Global Yardie, a podcast series exploring culture, climate, and sustainable development with people across the globe. Dainalyn became a distinguished Brand Jamaica ambassador when she was crowned the 2017 Miss Jamaica Festival Queen. She is also an avid wetlands advocate. I welcome our host for this afternoon's session, Miss Dainalyn Swaby.
Thank you so much, Eartha. Good evening. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I looked in the chat and I realized a lot of people were so excited to be here, and I am excited to be here. I just heard Eartha mention that I am an avid wetlands advocate, and I would love to think so. I am. In the background, I've created this virtual background of the Black River morass because I'm from Black River. Growing up, I used to be afraid of the morass, afraid of the crocodiles. But then over time, I came to appreciate the value of wetlands. So I'm very happy to be sharing in this segment this afternoon, looking at wise use of our wetlands from north to south, from inland to coastal. Now we're online, so we don't have the privilege of getting the reactions going, but we do have the opportunity to still do that. So I want us to really use up the reaction feature. If you are using your laptop, it is at the bottom right of your screen. So there is a heart, there is a hand clap, the laughter, the surprise face, and the celebration face. And the reason I'm pointing you to that because I want to do a reaction check. How was that video that you just saw? I, for one, enjoyed the tour. Knock, knock, who is there? I see Amarla giving it a round of applause. Any other reaction? Use up the reaction. If you're using your phone screen, I think you could swipe and you'll be able to see the reaction button, one of the options below. Thoroughly love the video. Comment in the chat if you love the video. So thank you so much, Natural History Museum of Jamaica, for organizing this event celebrating World Wetlands Day. I know the global theme was wetlands, action for people and nature. And now we're taking it down to the local level as we should, looking at wise use of our wetlands from north to south, from inland to coastal. That means that we're getting into the detail. By the time we're finished, we're going to be all wetland experts. And even if we're not going to be experts, definitely wetland enthusiasts. And I know throughout the episode, we'll be sharing other video presentations that will dive down into the wise uses of our wetlands, showing the cleanup activities and much more engaging and useful information. I am very, very excited for this opportunity, and just also want to acknowledge the collaboration by the Natural History Museum of Jamaica with the Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation. And before I get more into CCAM, the Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation, I think it's time to introduce the key presenter, who is the executive director for that organization, Miss Ingrid Parchment. Ingrid Parchment is the executive director of the Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation since 2008. Her focus involves leading the CCAM team to work collaboratively to improve the lives and livelihoods of stakeholders in the Portland Bight Protected Area while conserving natural and heritage resources. Her responsibilities include, but are not limited to, managing the day-to-day operations of CCAM, managing all the projects and activities of the organization, preparing reports for the board of directors, liaising with funding agencies and government agencies, supervising all staff and volunteers, facilitating workshops, financial oversight of the organization's funds, preparation of project proposals, and representing CCAM on local and national boards and committees. That is a lot of work, important work. So we're very excited to hear how it is all done. But before I welcome or pass over the floor to Miss Ingrid Parchment, I'm going to kind of remind our participants on our Zoom platform to please mute your microphone. Sometimes monitor your mics to see if it is muted so that we do not disrupt the program. And I forgot to also acknowledge our YouTube audience. Good afternoon to you as well. Miss Ingrid Parchment, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dainalyn. It was so interesting hearing you talking about the Black River morass. I grew up in St. Elizabeth, and I think I had the same, grew up with the same idea that wetlands were bad and crocodiles would hurt you and all of this negative, the smell, all of this kind of thing. So I was a little 10 miles outside of Black River. So every time we went there, you know, you would always try and huddle away from it so that you are not negatively impacted by a crocodile when just jump out at you. As I have grown, I have come to appreciate that is a little different. I am going to share my screen and go through a quick presentation. I want to thank the Natural History for having, me on. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I want to thank Natural History Museum for collaborating or including CCAM in this presentation. And I also want to thank my team members because honestly, you talk about the work that I do, but the work that CCAM does cannot be done without the collaboration of all of the team members, staff, board, volunteers, interns, consultants, contractors. Some of whom actually gave me input into my presentation today. So some of the photos, some of the data came from partners. So today my conversation is about wise use of our wetlands. And I'm going to try not to repeat some of what has been said already. Are you seeing my screen okay?
I am, yes.
Okay, great. So CCAM is a limited liability NGO, and we're registered from 1998. So we've been around for more than 20 years. Our main office is in Lioneltown, Clarendon, but we have an important field office in Salt River from where most of our marine outreach, if you will, takes place. So we manage the sanctuary, so the guys leave out from there, guys and girls, leave out from there to do patrols and monitoring. But we also have the Portland Bight Discovery Center. And you will see the photograph on the left. Later on, you will learn some more about it, so I'm not going to go into any details on that. But the Portland Bight Discovery Center really is for recreation and educational and ecotourism activities within the wetlands. So this is like a different approach to how it is that we deal with wetlands. CCAM, our mission is really sustainable development and livelihoods, or supporting sustainable development and livelihoods of coastal areas of Jamaica. But we focus on the Portland Bight Protected Area, which you can see in the blue at the lower section of the screen. We do this collaboratively with donors, government agencies, community members, private sector persons. It's a large area. We could not do this on our own. The Portland Bight area includes 8,200 hectares of wetlands, and you would have heard that we are one of the Ramsar sites in Jamaica. And I think that's very important. We need to know the value and importance of what it is that we have and how this links into our overall life. As I said, I work with a team, and these are some of our team members here, which I'm highlighting. Some of you would have heard Mr. Hay on an earlier webinar, and their other team members are behind him. So to further talk about the importance of wetlands, you know, we recognize that wetlands help to protect land against flooding. And I think for those persons who have experienced levels of flooding during hurricane and other type of weather events or storm events, fully appreciate that, because while there might have been some flooding, it was not as bad as it could have been. It also helps to support fisheries and recreational resources. I mean, we talked earlier about it being habitat, and that is what we're referencing there. It also traps carbon in peat, and it helps to filter runoff. Very importantly, We always talked about forest and trees sequestrate carbon sequestration, but now we're learning that mangroves are even better at it than your tropical forests. And this is another reason why it is important for us to conserve and protect our mangroves. And it is habitat for many plants and animals, some of which are mentioned before. And so here I'm showing some birds and crocodile. Importantly as well, I mean, we talk about crabs. We have more than 1,000 persons harvesting crabs. And I think it is important that we do some more study and understand what that is doing to the whole ecosystem. I mean, we enjoy eating the crabs, but is it impacting on other species within those areas? When is the best time to do it? Are people harvesting crab before they're ready? That kind of thing. We also know, as I said earlier, it's nursery for other species which we eat. So lobster, conch, fish. It is very important that we maintain those areas so that we can continue to maintain persons' lives and livelihoods. If these fish are not allowed this space where they can grow, then the fish that we're going to get are going to be babies. And if we're catching the babies, we are going to be reducing the number of eggs that the mature fish would grow. And it also will mean that the fish will not get to that stage. Wetlands can also be used for recreation. Actually, the bottom photograph here, persons are actually going out crabbing, and at the top they're doing a survey, but just to show you that this is also a potential use of the wetlands, which is a positive. There, as I indicated earlier, at the Portland Bay Discovery Center, we do ecotourism. So this is a group of persons being led on a tour of the wetlands. So you're going right on a boardwalk at the Portland Bay Discovery Center. You go on a boardwalk right into the wetlands, and then you're able to look out. Again, just another view. I think the changing of the idea that wetlands are bad, that they're smelly, that they have no use, is definitely something that needs to happen. And I think videography, photography, tours are a very important way of changing that narrative and making us not think of them as areas to be dumped up and used for other resources. It also provides an educational opportunity. A lot of students do come to the wetlands at the center, but they go to wetlands all across Jamaica. And they're learning more about important species such as bird and plants and crocodiles, And they're also seeing the beauty of the place. Sometimes, and I think especially with COVID, a lot of persons have been stressed. And having a space that you can just be one with nature, enjoy the company of your friends and family, that's also critical. It helps to put your mental space in a way that you can deal with the other issues that we have coming to us on a regular basis. We also use it for research. And this is actually bird banding being done at the bottom of the screen. If you look on the leg of the bird, you will see a slight metal band. So we have a program where for the birds that come to that site, we do banding on a monthly basis. So we are looking at the weight and type of bird. We put a band that's marked on their leg, and we enter that into a database. And then we're able to find out where the birds move to. And that helps us to look at what habitat the bird needs to live. Because imagine a bird traveling from North America to South America and needing a particular plant in the Caribbean. And we have cut down those plants because we want to, put up a hotel or build a road. Then that would definitely negatively impact the life cycle of that bird or species. So I think it's important for us to look at what we can do as individuals or groups to protect our wetlands. And sometimes it's simple things. I mean, sometimes we make it to be something difficult, but I'm not trying to make it difficult. The first thing, I think we need to learn more about our wetlands. And so, as I said, CCAM has the Portland Bay Discovery Center in Salt River, Clarendon, and you are welcome to come. There is a fee, but we do offer tours for small groups. You can go to our website, you can call our office, and I'll have the numbers at the end, and you can come and experience all that there is to experience at that location. But you can also support mangrove rehabilitation. I would suggest that when it comes to mangrove planting, this is not something that you as a group just decide you are going to be doing. You can have the interest, you can seek the funding, but you need the experts to help you to determine Is it the planting that's needed? Is it that we need to change the waterway? What is needed to ensure that the intervention that you're seeking to do will have the right impact? So I would suggest that it could be NEPA that you talk to, it could be our science officer, it could be somebody at UA, it could be one of the other protected areas. But certainly at CCAM, we would definitely provide you some insight and support on that, especially if you're looking to do something like that within Portland Bight. And so here it is that we had a group of students that we took out on World Wetlands Day a few years ago. And the previous photograph was one of our conservation officers. So some of the things, we don't want you to clear mangroves. And I think this photograph or this picture depicts exactly what might happen. So it was all very well and good. He went and cut down the mangroves. And as I mentioned earlier, they help to reduce the impact of storm surge or the strength of the storm surge. He cut it down and he was happy, as you could see in the bottom picture. But once there was a storm and the flooding was coming, he was running. Frankly, he would have been too late if he was standing there. So it is very important that we don't clear mangroves, but we talk to other persons about it as well. Once we learn things, we need to share that information. We need to encourage persons to go to places where they can learn, so that whatever decisions we're making from an informed perspective, so that we can make the best decisions. One of the things that we also look at is where you should try not to do building. So we had worked with the Clarendon Parish Council after Hurricane Dean to put in place some no-build zones, not because we were trying to make persons' lives hard, but we recognize based on the damage, certainly from Hurricanes Ivan and Dean, and many of the hurricanes in between, that there are some areas that are not suitable for building, because these areas are prone to storm surge, flooding. So it's a way to reduce the socioeconomic impact. It's a way to ensure that more lives are not lost through this. So all of the pink areas that you're seeing on my map, and this is a map of the Portland Bight protected area. At the bottom of the screen, it is the Portland Ridge, and over to the right, it's the Hellshire Hills, just to kind of orient it to the map. So this is something that we're not recommending. And I would say, if a developer comes, whether it is government or private sector, and they're seeking to do building in these areas, that as a community, you need to be educated, you need to know, you need to go to those EIA or public discussions to discourage them from cutting down mangroves and doing this kind of construction in that space. Now, additionally, dumping of mangroves, which in a way is kind of related to the building, but sometimes we take construction material and throw it in the mangrove area because we say it's a wild area, nobody's checking on it. But again, you are disrupting the whole ecosystem, and you could lead to loss of habitat for some of the species. It could lead to increased flooding because you're blocking the flow. So this is something, again, if you see it happening, report it to NEPA, report it to CCAM, report it to NSWMA, go on Facebook or social media and post a photograph. Let us not let things happen around us. Let us be involved. Let us make an active decision in how our lives are going to happen. We need to make a difference individually and as a group, because the truth is that if you're going to complain about it, I suggest that you try and do something about it. And as I said, find one thing, and try and find the organization or the funding or the support that is needed to be able to do that. I thank you. Dainalyn?
Sorry, I was just basking in all that information and I'm taking my notes, so just putting down the pen. Thank you for such a very informative presentation. I just love the kind of tour energy and reflecting on it. Yes, I see Leah already clapping. Please sound off the emojis with a heart or a celebration. Thank you, Miss Parchment. One of the things that we just love about being Jamaican, you can't run out of things to do. I know going to the beach is the all-time favorite, but I love that now we are shifting the focus on how we can enjoy ourselves and looking at how we can protect our environment while appreciating the environment as well. So even though we want places to live, makes no sense, as you mentioned in the presentation, to destroy the mangrove area, and then when the hurricane come, the same nice pretty house that we build, it's going to be impacted because we did not preserve our wetland areas. So I'm definitely going to figure out when I can sign my Rotary Club up for a tour, because we were interested in some mangrove replanting, and I hear you saying let's not go without the experts. So much to learn from you. But I'm going to open the floor up because I see some excited people from Moortown Primary. They sounded off and registered their presence and all of that. So it's now time for our question and answer segment, for you to get more information from Miss Ingrid Parchment, the Executive Director of the Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation.
I will also say I have some team members on board, and I know IOJ, just in case there are questions that are fielded to me that I'm unable to answer at the moment, I would like to have their support in answering those questions.
All right, so I see that Mr. Brandon Hay, T'Challa, Javanka, Venice Brown, Devante Coop, and Alex Simpson. I think those are your team members. So if you see them in the chat as well, perhaps if you're not going to make use of the Q&A, remember those names, you could perhaps send them a message as well. All right, so I'm going to pause now for those who want to ask any questions from of Miss Ingrid. All right, so because I'm not usually the shy person, I see probably some persons are shy. I realize in your presentation, you mentioned about bird banding, where and that's how you tag or put a band on the birds. How is it that you're able to document and keep track of the same bird, because you did say that you're able to see what other areas and all of that. So tell us a little bit more about that process.
All right, I can't tell you, but I know Brandon is on and he's the one that's integrally involved in that. But as I said, the band is, that information is put in a database, and that database is a way that you want to track it. But Brandon, if you had anything more to add, because I know you're involved, and I would not want to not allow you to tell them more, because really I found it rather exciting when I saw them doing that for the first time.
All right. Yes, Ingrid, thanks. You hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, the banding program is part of a long-term constant effort monitoring program that we have in Portland Bight. And it's one of these things that we're not the only ones doing it. We're part of an international network of persons who are operating banding stations in the tropical regions and in the temperate regions where the birds migrate to and from. And so if we band a bird here and the number that's on the band is in a central database, then we can find out if it turns up in one of the banding stations elsewhere. And in fact, it is a fairly rare event to actually have one of your banded birds, even though you may band hundreds of birds. You can imagine there are thousands of them out there. It's a fairly rare event to recapture a bird from one banding station in one part of the migration and in the other. But it has actually happened for us. In fact, once we recovered a water thrush, which is a tiny little bird that lives almost exclusively in the mangrove habitat. And it had been banded by us, and 3 weeks later, it was, unfortunately, it had been killed because it had flown into someone's plate glass veranda window and died. But they were able to recover the band and get the number entered into the system. So we were able to tell that one of our birds was at least migrating into that part of Canada and was either going to overwinter in that location or continue further on north. And so sometimes the information can be spotty, but you also catch a lot of the same birds from your own banding station because the birds have a high, what they call site fidelity. So they come back to the same sites in the winter and in the summer. So each year we tend to recapture some of our own birds. That's important because it gives us idea of how the health status of the birds, how well they're doing, what their survivorship is like, how long they live, and things like that. And so there's a lot of information that we can get from a site such as this. And so we've been maintaining this for a number of years now in Portland Bight, and we've been lucky to actually get a return from our faraway site. But it's one of these methodologies that is used worldwide to try and keep track of the birds at a population level.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Hay. I'm just imagining, like, because I forgot, I don't want to go too deep, but in case people might be interested. Oh, I see Leah. Or is it Leah? Leah has her hand up.
It's Leah.
Okay, go ahead, Leah.
You mentioned something about the sphagnum moss that it's 40 times its weight. So how do you measure it? How do you measure the moss?
I think that's a question for IOJ. Karen?
Yes, I think that's the first video
Right,
that
that's
was
the
shown,
first
the
video.
knock video. Yes.
Tracy or Karen?
Hi, good afternoon, Leo.
Good afternoon.
Right, so the sphagnum moss, it can hold 40 times its dry weight. So you would collect some of the moss, you would dry it out basically to a certain a standard weight. So probably you dry 1 pound until you get a pound. Then you'd add water to see how much water it can retain without water starting to run out or leave the sphagnum moss. So that's basically done. I mean, it can be done. Anybody can do it, but they would do it in a lab basically just to have everything standardized. And they, as I said, dry it out to a standard weight. Then they continue to add water. And what they found was it can hold up to 40 times the dry weight when they measured it. So it's, and this is why this particular species is important in wetlands, because it actually holds water in the area and keeps the area wet because it can retain that amount of water in it.
Okay, I understand now. So what do you do with it after you finish using it? Do you just throw it away, or do you do something else with it?
Well, interestingly, it is used in the horticultural industry. When in the wild, it's there for the purpose I just pointed out, to retain water, keep water in the environment, the ecosystem. But in some countries, they extract this plant, they reap this plant from the wild, and they dry it out and they use it in the horticultural industry to use as a potting mixture. They use it in flower pots. When they're shipping plants across the world, they use it to retain the moisture while it's being shipped across the world. And in the past, it was also used for treating wounds. Because of the retention capacity, it would basically stop the blood from, if you got a cut, it would help stop the bleeding. So that's some of the uses it has. But as I said, the best use is it's in the environment, doing what it does, keeping the moisture in the ecosystem.
Okay, now I have clarity. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, and thank you so much, Leah, for volunteering to ask a question. I love when people ask questions because that's how we also learn as well. Is there anyone else who would love to ask some questions from the presentation we just heard? Okay. So for I want two things that also jumped out. I'm not sure if anyone else caught it. So Ingrid Parchment spoke about carbon sequestration and that the mangroves are actually much better at sequestering carbon than the tropical forest. So you know, we wanted you to explain, Ingrid, what is carbon sequestration?
You know, then drop that over to my science officer as well.
Yes, the CCAM team, I should say. Let me
I'm
just.
telling you.
All
Yeah.
right.
Brandon?
Yes, I'm still here. Right. Okay. So carbon sequestration. We know that you probably would have learned in school in your science classes about the different cycles in nature. You would have heard about the water cycle, but there are many other elements that cycle through the ecosystem and that include nitrogen and carbon, etc. And in the carbon cycle, the atmosphere, CO2 in the atmosphere is an important part of that cycle. Then the plants remove it from the atmosphere and it integrated into their tissues. And then maybe when those plants are cut and burned or when they decay, the carbon that's locked in is released back into the atmosphere. So there's a cycle that proceeds through the plants and through the atmosphere and various other living things. And the thing about it, though, the problem is that carbon in the atmosphere, if it's too much, as we know, that's one of the leading causes of the greenhouse effect, which is leading to global climate change. And so what we want is to have as much carbon as possible being sequestered. Sequestered means locked away from the atmosphere. So instead of being free as carbon dioxide, creating this greenhouse effect, trapping the heat and making our planet warmer, you want to lock it away in the physical structures of the plants. One of the great things about a mangrove forest is that in addition to the bodies, the leaves and the stems of the trees itself, mangroves in particular have a lot of sediment that is preserved within the ecosystem underneath the water. In fact, a lot of mangrove forests have a very thick layer of sediment that is trapped in amongst the roots. And in that sediment, which is very much a part of the ecosystem, there is a lot of carbon that is locked away in there. And it's maintained because once the trees are there, the sediments remain and it's locked away for hundreds, if not thousands of years out of the atmosphere. When you remove the trees, those sediments begin to wash away, they begin to oxidize, and a lot of the carbon that's there will be released back into the atmosphere. That leads to global warming. And so you want your ecosystems to perform the function of cleaning the excess carbon from the atmosphere. And that term is what we call carbon sequestration. You lock it away from the atmosphere so that it's not doing any harm to the climate.
Thank you so much, Brandon. But thank you. We can only just marvel and be appreciative of the wonders of nature, the mangroves storing the carbon, and also previously listening the use of helping it to stop wounds and all of that. Well, that was a must, but just still appreciating the value of nature. I see a hand raised from the NMJ outreach officer.
Yes, hi. My name is Alexis, and I just wanted to ask Ms. Parchment and the team, do you, because you had mentioned that, don't go out and plant your own mangroves, but do you guys have like any international days coming up? I know UNESCO, I believe, has a conservation day for mangrove stuff. Like, is there something like that that's coming up that the public could be involved in and that we can support here at the Institute of Jamaica? Thank you.
Typically, it would be World Wetlands Day that we would be focused on for any mangrove activity. But you don't need a day. You just need to, as I said, have the right information, have the resources, have a team together. And whether it is going to be, other tree planting, an education session, a tour, whatever it is, it can be facilitated. It's nice to celebrate the days, and I'm not knocking that. But as I said, for us, it would have been, the focus on mangroves would have been World Wetlands Day. We have some other days coming up like International Migratory Bird Day, which could be related, and Caribbean Endemic Bird Day, International Fisherman's Day, etc. You know, so there's a day to celebrate the environment almost every month. Say that again, Brandon?
Tree planting day.
Yes,
Remember
National
this
Tree
year we
Planting Day.
had a group that came to assist with a site that we were already working on. So there are opportunities like that where we already have an ongoing program, and you can volunteer to be available when on those days, and as a part of the observance, we can go out and maybe do some supplemental planting or something else that would benefit the mangrove, like maybe creating channels to allow water to flow into the system, things like that. That is also an opportunity as possible. So keep in touch.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that question. Okay, any more questions before we move on to the next segment? Remember, you can always raise your hand. I certainly have a lot more questions after Miss Ingrid's presentation, but guess what? I am going to reserve my questions for when I take the tour. Come down to the PBDC. Did I get that right? PBDC, Portland Bight Development Center.
Discovery Center.
Discovery Center. Almost just nearly, yes. So definitely I'm going to store that excitement for that time. So in the meanwhile, I'd like to thank Ingrid Parchment and the CCAM team for such a valuable presentation, opening up our appetites just a bit more in terms of the wise use of our wetlands. And I really love that you also included the what not to do. So sometimes not doing is just as important as doing. So I know everyone else, we're really taking in the information, and thanks to your team as well for being on hand to answer our questions. Now we're going to go back into our video presentations, and at this time we'll be sharing the rehabilitation of our wetlands video. All right, so I caught that very important message at the end. The conservation of our wetlands can only be achieved by the combined efforts of everyone. So we're so grateful to have seen that video emphasizing the actions that are being taken to care and to preserve and rehabilitate our wetlands. And of course, it's a little bit painful looking at so many cleanup activities that we have to organize. And as you highlighted in the previous video, sometimes by not doing, we are also helping the cause, because when you think about a lot of garbage that ends up on our coastline, be it the beaches or in our wetland areas. I used to think as a child, when I was younger, I used to think that people would go by these places and just, you know, maybe sit and eat and leave the garbage. But now we're learning that sometimes it's really about, you don't have to be close to those areas for the garbage to end up all the way in our wetland environment. So I'm noticed that a lot of children are online, and I want you to encourage your peers and encourage people around you to make sure that we're disposing of our garbage properly so that it doesn't impact our wetland spaces. Now, we've seen already so many aspects of the care and protection of wetlands, just as I highlighted the role, not the roles, the actions that we've been taking. The previous video, the different aquatic, maybe animals and birds and different features. And now we want to know more about what goes into caring for our wetlands. So now we're going to show our roles in the wetlands meet the managers video, so that we can learn so much more.
We are an environment and development non-government organization, or NGO, and our primary mission is to work towards the sustainable development of the natural resources in the Portland Bight Protected Area, which is Jamaica's largest protected area.
The Mason River Protected Area was declared by NEPA in 1998. It also was designated a Ramsar site in 2011, and it's also a game sanctuary and recognized as a national heritage based on the JNHT Act. Now it is over 2,000 feet above sea level, unlike the other Ramsar sites in Jamaica, which are mainly on the coastal zones.
The CCAM management team consists of an executive director who is in charge of the organization, and myself as scientific officer, who also is primarily responsible for activities here at our field station in Salt River. And from here, we have a number of conservation officers, or wardens, if you prefer, and these men and women are responsible for looking after the mangroves and the natural habitat. They conduct daily patrols by boat and sometimes by land, and they are empowered as enforcement officers, as fisheries inspectors, and as game wardens.
The team that manages the protected area consists of myself, just the botanist. There's an assistant botanist in my department, and we have 2 field wardens, and we have an office assistant, basically. The wardens, they patrol, they make fire lines, and they clean the trails, and they also are trained through NEPA. The area is co-managed by NEPA, so NEPA also has officers who go down and visit the site and make sure everything is running smoothly in terms of the management structure and the biodiversity and all those things.
Well, Portland Bight certainly has some of the largest areas of mangrove forests remaining in Jamaica. And as such, a lot of the benefits to the natural resources come from the wetland systems that we have here. However, we've had some issues in the past. We've had areas that have been damaged by hurricanes and have been damaged by cutting and development. And so we've had to do some amount of rehabilitation work in the past, usually in the form of replanting of mangroves, but in other areas we've had to go back in and do hydrologic restoration where we've had to improve the water flows into the wetlands to allow them to recover on their own.
In terms of restoration or rehabilitation at the Mason River Protected Area, we actually have 2 projects running funded by Jamaica Conservation Partners and NEPA. And this project is really aimed at removing an invasive fern called the vampire fern, which we find at the Mason River Protected Area. It smothers out the native species, though the fern is also native, but it smothers out the other native species, and in doing so reduces the biodiversity in terms of the fauna and the flora. So our goal through these projects basically is to remove the fern and rehabilitate, restore these areas with native species. This project is headed by our assistant botanist, Ashley Cross, and so far we're doing well, and we will continue this for the next couple of years until we get to a point where we can have natives back in the areas that are now covered by the invasives.
Some of the challenges we face here include climate change. That's a major one because most of the wetlands, especially the mangroves, even though they look like they're very hardy plants, they are sensitive to, very, very sensitive to changes in sea level. They're very sensitive to storm damage. And so whenever we have a storm, they are the ones that take the majority of the impact. They act in this way, they act to protect the communities and the forest inland, but it comes at a price to the wetland. And so when we have severe weather events, one of the things that we try and do is to respond quickly to see if there are ways we can assist the system to recover. But apart from climate change, there are also threats from just human activity, agriculture, the use of pesticides and fertilizers in particular also have an impact. The chemicals, agrochemicals that make their way into the environment usually make their way to the sea. And on the way there, they encounter the mangroves. And the mangroves are very useful in that they help to clean up the water, to remove some of the impurities. However, again, that comes at a price to the mangroves, where you can have situations where there's too much nutrients in the mangroves, or changes in agriculture that result in more water being taken for use in irrigation, and therefore very little available for the wetlands. And so the wetlands begin to become drier and saltier in the process, and this increases stress on the wetlands as well. And so there are lots of challenges that we have to face, and foremost among them is we need to recognize how our actions can have an impact on mangroves and wetlands, even though they're far away from where we live and work.
In terms of issues that affect the Mason River Protected Area, we have that aren't in the proximity of the protected area. We're looking at climate change, and we're looking at those type of activities that burn fossil fuels. So Mason River, as pointed out, is almost in the center of the island. So unlike the coastal wetlands that would be affected by trickle-down effect from hills down to the ocean, we don't have that problem. So our problem is much further, and it basically has to do with climate change. So with the climate changing, the species at the Mason River Protected Area will be negatively affected. These species need the type of hydrology that is there, it needs the type of water regime that is there, and with less rainfall or heavier rainfall or hotter climates, these species will basically be adversely affected and possibly not survive those changes if it's a very big change.
Well, we need to recognize those activities that have the most negative impact on the wetland systems, and we need to realize that we have a responsibility to change some of the practices. We need to ask ourselves, well, what happens to the waste that we produce? And how much waste do we produce, and the kind of waste, the agrochemicals that we use? These things don't just disappear. They make their way into the environment, and they do have an impact somewhere down the line. And so it starts with educating ourselves, recognizing that even the smallest activity that we do when we go to wash our hands or wash the dishes or wash our clothes, that is having a small impact. But the cumulative effect of everybody every day washing and cleaning is having a massive impact in the water table, and that is making its way into the coastal zone and the wetlands. And so we need to educate ourselves and take steps, even if they seem like small steps as individuals. We all have a part to play in trying to stem the tide and to reverse the effects, the negative effects that we've had. And so taking personal responsibility and changing some of those habits.
So in terms of wise use, we need to educate ourselves about the importance of the area firstly, and if we educate ourselves about the importance of the area, we will appreciate it and hopefully not abuse the area. So as pointed out, the area is one that provides water to both the north and the south. The Mesa River Protected Area is in the watershed area that provides water to the north, the rivers going to the north, and also to the rivers going to the south. So in keeping this area in a good condition in terms of the biodiversity, in terms of not having fertilizers, in terms of not having fires around this area, basically we'll be doing ourselves a favor, because it provides water for rivers going to the north, going to the south. It provides water for the farmers in the area. It provides water through springs, which are in the Mesa River Protected Area for the residents in the area as well. So basically, it's just to treat it as important as the services that it provides, and we will be fine.
Right. Well, almost, Jamaica is a very small island, and we're very near to the coast wherever we are. And so any activity that we do that has an impact on the environment will eventually trickle down and have some impact on the coastal zone. The wetlands that we're talking about are mostly located here in the coastal zone, and they do act as a buffer to protect us from the impacts of the sea during storms and storm surges, and they also protect the sea from the impacts from the land, the runoff, the siltation, the agrochemicals, and so on. But what that means is that these ecosystems can be impacted by activities that we may think is relatively far away. Agriculture in the mountains that could result in soil erosion may seem very far from the sea, but very quickly a river during a flood event will take those sediments right down into the mangroves. And if the mangroves aren't there, it's going right out onto the coral reefs and into the seagrass beds. And so even activities that we think are relatively far away, everything from the use of fertilizers, even the way we deal with our own domestic waste and wastewater in our house, whether it's gray water from the soap that we use to wash our laundry, or the sewage that we produce, that doesn't disappear. It goes into the environment, and unfortunately, at some point, it's going to make its way into the coastal zone and have some sort of impact on the mangroves. From where I sit as a manager, it appears to me that the long-term effect of climate change is going to have a devastating effect on our wetlands. And the wetlands provide so much ecosystem services that are essential, services that we could never afford to replace using artificial structures, the purification of the coastal zone, the waters, the storm protection. All of these things are very, very important to the way we now live our lives. And we need to encourage governments to take steps to reduce the production of CO2 and reduce the greenhouse effect, reduce the impact that climate change is going to have on not just the wetland, but all of us. In time, this thing is going to reach a point where it's going to have severe economic and social effects on our country. And the sooner we can take some positive action, the more we will be able to be successful at reducing the worst impacts of climate change.
In terms of the Mason River protected area, it being a high elevation wetland, sometimes persons do not see it as important as the ones which are lower down. The ones lower down tend to be used for a lot of recreation, fishing, nurseries, all these other types of things. And because it's on the coast, it's splashy. But Mason River, as I pointed out, provides water for residents, it provides water for farming communities, it provides water that goes into watershed areas that feed rivers, and from these rivers, a lot of people benefit. And also people fish in these rivers. People use these same rivers for recreation, but because the Mason River is far away from most of where the attractions are, you tend to not see the importance of it. So my point is, all the wetlands are important, whether they're along the coast, whether they're up in the hills, because they all have these features that provide services, not just to those around them, but those far away as well, even though you might not know it.
All right. Thank you so much. That was, again, another very useful and valuable video showcasing the different roles as it goes to taking care of the wetlands, managing our wetlands areas. Is there anybody that wants to comment in the chat, something that you just learned? And again, we got some more lessons on the do's and don'ts and how, of course, our far away activities impact the wetland spaces. I'm sure if somebody was doing some sort of assignment, you'd be laughing all the way to the 100% mark that you'd gotten in that assignment just because of the information that's coming out in the videos that we've seen so far. Anybody wants to comment in the chat? Drop something that you picked up in the video. It could be one thing or it could be a reminder. Let me know that you've been listening and you're not getting up to go outside to play or do something else when you should have been tuning into the video. All right. While I wait, I'm still looking forward to you sharing your takeaway from what was a very informative video. We are now going to move through the program and we have a next video for you. And this time it will be a virtual tour of the Portland Bight video. So if you're like me and you're planning to go to the Portland Bight and you want to know more of what it is like, I'm sure that you'll be tuning in.
Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation, CCAM for short, was established in 1997 to promote coastal conservation in Jamaica. Its mission is to promote sustainable development of the Portland Bight Protected Area through stakeholder participation in the implementation and management of programs and projects. The Portland Bight Protected Area and the Keys Ramsar site was established in 1999. Our tour today takes us on a boat ride from the field station and along the Salt River course, where we will see quite a bit of interesting areas. The first up is the area with the old barges. These are remnants of shipping vessels that were left in the river from the period during which sugar was being transported. Next up is the old wharf. This structure tells a tale of some of the activities which used to be conducted in this area. This was where locals would transport the sugar and banana to the ships out at sea. As we move along the mouth of the Salt River, we see a shipwreck of the Lady Bluefin. Another important feature of the Portland Bight Protected Area is the Salt Harbor Fish Sanctuary. It was so declared in July 2009 with approximately 1,031.98 hectares, also managed by the CCAM Foundation. Other areas of interest include Burial Ground, Collin Bay, Sandy Bank, Biorock, the Mangrove Restoration Site, Long Island, Short Island, and Welcome Beach. The Artificial Reef Project, also known as Biorock, was started to offset the effects resulting from the decline of coral reefs within the area due to natural hazards such as hurricanes and coral bleaching. The aim is to provide fish with a home where they can grow within local coastal waters instead of venturing out of the area in search of suitable habitat. The design of the structure is a dome-shaped steel frame with 4 legs branching off the dome. The structure is supplied with a small electric charge, which is provided by a wind turbine that sits on top of a pole above the surface of the water and runs through the center of the dome. The purpose of the electric current is to speed up the accretion of minerals dissolved in seawater, which form a thick layer of substrate and prevents the structure from rusting so that they last longer. The biorocks located in shallow waters below 10 feet deep are powered by a wind turbine, while those in deep waters are powered by small floating solar panels. The Portland Bight Discovery Center enhances environmentally sustainable development of the Portland Bight Protected Area by providing first-class educational and recreational experiences and facilitating conservation management. From the center, CCAM is able to deliver educational experiences for school groups from infant to tertiary level, including but not limited to general interests, field trips, fun days, ecology coursework, and special interest courses. The center aims at increasing awareness of conservation, the environment, and climate change through enjoyable experiential learning for all ages, including local community members, schools, and the general public. The center offers the following experiences for visitors. The Wildlife Hide. This is a wooden structure with broad windows for viewing wildlife in the mangroves along Salt River. The Dipping Pond. This is a pond with a low size and a perimeter shelf where up to 15 children at a time can use hand nets to collect critters. Supporting infrastructure includes a shaded area with benches which can be used for interpretation and a place for hand washing. A turtle pond. This shallow pond hosts a small number of native Jamaican slider turtles. And exhibition space. Visitors get a wealth of information about important facts on the Portland Bight Protected Area, the biodiversity found there, and the threats to the ecosystem. Come, join us now on the Mangrove Boardwalk journey through the heart of the wetlands. Can you hear the sounds? Can you see the sights as we move along the Salt River? Here, you can hear and see birds and other wildlife and enjoy local stories from our knowledgeable tour guides. This boardwalk was built to give access to our wetland so visitors can enjoy its beauty. Birdwatchers and nature enthusiasts use the boardwalk annually to observe wetland species such as birds, crabs, and reptiles. As you enter the wetland, you will notice a distinct scent. This is because wetland houses several different bacteria and fungi that result in different gaseous byproducts. The main two byproducts are sulfur and methane, which are known to cause this pungent scent. The fungi also causes coloration in the wetland water. Different fungi result in different colors. The two main mangroves seen along the boardwalk are red and black mangroves. The easiest way to differentiate between the two is by their root system. Red mangroves possess prop roots, which branch off from the tree into the soil to help with structural support. Black mangroves possess roots which poke out of the sediment instead of growing into it, called nematophores. Both root systems are used for gaseous exchange. Both mangroves have special adaptations which allow them to thrive in saline water. Black mangroves can take up salt water, use the water, and put the salt out onto their leaves. If you look closely at the leaves, you may see crystals of salt on the surface. Red mangroves operate in a similar manner by taking up salt water, but instead of excreting salt crystals, they pump the excess salt into designated leaves, which are removed from the plant when the leaves die and fall from the tree. These leaves are easily identified by their yellow color and are known as sacrificial leaves. At the end of the boardwalk, we have our bird hide, which provides shelter and a sitting place. Bird banding is done along the boardwalk every quarter by Mr. Brandon Hay, Science Officer, and Dr. Ann Sutton, Consultant. Fine black mesh nets are set up early in the morning before sunrise, and the birds caught in the net and retrieved are processed by the collection of certain data, such as the wing length, fat deposit, and weight. After which, a band is placed on their leg as a marker, and the band number is recorded for reference. The bird is then released back into the wild. Hope you enjoyed this brief tour of the visitor offerings at the Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation and Portland Bight Discovery Center. Hope to see you soon. Until then, walk good.
Wow, everything looked so exciting, inviting. It really makes me want to discover the Portland Bight Protected Area for myself, and not just through the lens of the video, even though I'm grateful that I could have seen it all. Who's with me? Who's ready to go down to take a tour of the Portland Bight Protected Area? To go bird... Right, Tiona agrees. Thanks. I thought they were gonna leave me hanging here. Anyone else? Let's see the reactions. How did you find the video? What was it like? Do remember, thanks for the thumbs up, Amelia. Remember that you can all sound off through the reaction emojis in the chat. And on YouTube, drop your comments if you love what you're seeing. Organize those tours. I know the teachers are online, and I know the students are going to go back into class and say, Miss, or Sir, please organize a field trip. We want to go to engage in the mangrove replanting or just to see and take pictures. Trust me, teachers, people online, do not underestimate the value of what we're being exposed to. I love that sometimes this is how students and other persons tap into their career interests and find a new path that they want to go into. So I love everything that we've just seen. That was a tour of the Portland Bight. And now we're going to embark on another tour. So I don't know if you want to put on a hat or get into character as we also now look at the Mason River.
Welcome to the Mason River Protected Area, Bird Sanctuary and Ramsar Site, established in 1963 to preserve Jamaica's only documented inland peat bog and its fascinating biodiversity. The Mason River Field Station is owned by the Jamaica National Heritage Trust and co-managed by the Institute of Jamaica and the National Environment and Planning Agency. The Mason River Protected Area is 202 acres of land situated on the border of Clarendon and St. Anne. It was designated a game sanctuary in 1998 and declared a protected national heritage and protected area in 2002. In 2011, it was designated a wetland of international importance or Ramsar site. The 202 acres are divided into 3 areas. 122 acres of land, which is permanently fenced and known as the reserve. The reserve contains several unique plant species as well as several endemic birds and insects. The area also includes a peat bog. 36 acres of land is controlled area, left unprotected in order to illustrate the effects of human interference over the years. 44 acres of land are used by residents of the area for agriculture. 2 highly invasive plants, vampire fern, Dichronopteris pectinata, and the strawberry guava, have started displacing native species in the reserve. Large areas of this vampire fern are indicated on the map. Efforts are being made to fight the spread of these invasives. The Mason River Protected Area has a 1.5-kilometer nature walk loop within the core area of the reserve. 431 plant species have been documented at the Mason River Protected Area, of which 90% are native and 11% are endemic, a few of which are endangered. A diversity of animals also exists, such as insects, reptiles, amphibians, bats, and birds. There are at least 59 species of birds, of which 12 are endemic. Some interesting plants, animals, and features that you may see on the trail include orchids. There are over 220 species of orchids on the island, of which approximately 66 are only found in Jamaica. The protected area has ground orchids and epiphytic orchids. Epiphytes are not parasites and do not harm host plants like a parasite would do. Rather, epiphytes only live on other plants for physical support and to gain access to more sunlight. They absorb moisture and nutrients from the environment through specialized cells in their aerial roots. Like orchids, some wild pines or bromeliads are epiphytic, while some grow on the ground. Water that collects at the bases of the leaves can support entire small ecosystems with algae, insects, crustacea, and tadpoles. Reptiles and birds use this water for drinking purposes also. Lisianthus exertus has no known common names. There are 8 species of Lisianthus in Jamaica, and all are endemic. A fully automated weather station is on the reserve. It has been used by scientists at the National Meteorological Office to collect data on temperature, wind speed and direction, rainfall, and air pressure for over 30 years. The peat bog, which was discovered in 1956, is a special wetland on the property and was the reason for the area being established as a protected area. Peat is an organic fuel formed from decomposing plant and animal materials in the acidic soils of wetlands. The Mason River Protected Area is home to 4 types of carnivorous plants: sundews, Venus flytraps, pitcher plants, and bladderworts. These plants are different from most plants on the reserve because they are specially adapted to environments with low availability of the nutrient nitrogen, as is the case in many wetlands. Their remarkable abilities allow them to trap insects and extract the desired nutrients from them. Sundews are small red plants that trap their prey using sticky droplets of fluid at the ends of hair-like capillaries on their leaves. These droplets resemble drops of dew, glistening in the sun, which is why the plants are called sundews. The sundew is native to Jamaica. Venus flytraps have modified leaves that are triggered to snap shut when small insects walk across them. When the traps close with the prey inside, the plant releases enzymes to digest the insect. Just like other carnivorous plants, the pitcher plant gets some of its nutrients from capturing insects. Insects crawl into the top of the pitcher, fall into the pool of water at the base, get trapped, and are ingested. Both the Venus flytraps and the pitcher plants were introduced from the United States in 1969. Melostomes are distinguished from other plants in the protected area by the checkered pattern on the underside of the leaves. The reserve has 21 species of melostomes, ranging from small herbs to large trees. The cup and saucer flower is a melostome plant that is endemic to Jamaica. Many birds eat the fruits of these trees. More than 600 species of ferns grow in Jamaica. Of these, 32 species grow at the reserve. This species of Lindsaya can only be found here at the reserve and in one area of Westmoreland. These bracken ferns were historically woven together to make mats for drying ginger. Of all the ferns in Jamaica, only 12 species are tree ferns like the ones growing here. These will grow to be about 6 meters tall. The moss growing here is special. Known as sphagnum moss, it can hold 40 times its dry weight in water. During World War I, sphagnum moss was used to bandage wounds because of its ability to hold fluids and its purported antiseptic properties. The strawberry guava is native to Brazil and was introduced to the Mason River Protected Area. It is an invasive alien species and is often called mountain guava. Birds and children enjoy the fruits of this tree. It is a close relative of our common guava and is also related to pimentos. The prickly pole is a palm tree that is endemic to Jamaica. As you can see, the trunk and leaves have very sharp needle-like prickles that the tree grows for protection. The yellow latex derived from the tar pot tree is waterproof and was historically used to seal canoes. People also use the sturdy leaves to write notes and as playing cards. Dragonflies are known locally as needle cases. They are also called devil's darning needles, horse stingers, and snake doctors. In spite of these fearful common names, dragonflies do not sting. These insects lay their eggs in and around bodies of water, hence the reserve is their ideal habitat. The Jamaican giant anole, locally called green lizards, inhabit forest trees and feed on larger insects such as crickets and roaches. They can rapidly change color from green to almost black when threatened. The Mason River property is an important game sanctuary for many birds. The elusive Connecticut warbler was first reported in Jamaica at the Mason River Protected Area. The white-crowned pigeon, locally known as baldpate, is a popular game bird. It is frequently seen feeding and resting here. Thanks for joining us on our virtual tour of the Mason River Protected Area.
I tell you, I have been thoroughly enjoying the tour, learning so much. Can anyone tell me the two parishes that border the Mason River Protected Areas? If you've been listening, two parishes that border the Mason River Protected Area, you can comment in the chat. Let's see who has been paying attention. I'm waiting. Who can tell me? You can raise your hand. The two parishes that the Mason River Protected Area borders. No one remembers? All right, so I guess maybe I was the only one paying attention. I might assume that. I know, I'm sorry, I can't see if there has been any YouTube comments. All right, someone says Portland. Can someone from, that is not what I had done. St. Anne and Clarendon, that is correct. Okay, so St. Anne and Clarendon, the Mason River Protected Areas borders those two parishes, St. Anne and Clarendon. And we learned so much through this video. 431 plant species within this area, 90% native, 11% endemic, 59 species of birds. I was trying to capture so much. 202 acres of land bordering Clarendon and St. Anne. Jamaica's, I think it was only inland peat bog. There's so much more to continue doing our research and diving down, but that was such a great video. We enjoyed the virtual tour that we got today. I think we've actually come to the end. Unless I am missing something, I'm to hand over. Right, so now I see Miss Tracy come on, so I know that we've reached, but I see Ariana has raised her hand. Yes, Ariana?
Excuse me, miss.
Yeah.
I can't really remember the name, but you said a plant can grow up to 6 feet tall, I think.
Yes, I think that was one of the fern species that you are correct. The tree ferns that grow in the Mason River Protected Area. Definitely.
Miss, is it like the same ones that you can find near your house? Or is it different species?
All right, so before, I'd love to answer that, but I think our team members will be better able to answer. I'm not sure if somebody from CCAM or our natural history team would want to take on that question about the tree fern.
Afternoon again. Right.
Who is that?
Karen.
Oh, yes, Karen.
Campbell. Right. So it depends on where you live. It depends on where you live. But these ferns are usually high elevation because they like.
What does high elevation mean? Remember, we have some, they are smart, but.
Okay, so if you live up in the mountains, if you live in the Blue Mountain area, if you live in the Cockpit Country area, Dolphin Head area, in the mountains, you probably may see some of these species. But if you live in the lowland areas on the plains of Jamaica, like in Kingston or southern Clarendon, you won't see tree ferns because those areas are dry. So it depends on where you live, but generally you would find them in areas that are high humidity, so a lot of moisture in the air, a lot of rainfall. So you wouldn't find them down on the coastal areas or in the plains. I hope that helps.
Did that help you, Ariana?
Yes, Miss.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Karan, for that explanation. Okay, and that was an amazing tour. And I caught something at the beginning of the video as I leave you for this evening, which it has been a wonderful time spent with you. It said, live biodiversity, think biodiversity, enjoy biodiversity. It was really a pleasure being here with you this afternoon, learning so much, seeing so much, and I'm sure that now we want to do so much as it relates to taking care of our wetlands, wise use of our wetlands from north to south, inland to coastal. We really got the full tour, the full package. All right, so
Definitely.
now I'm going to turn over to Miss Tracy Comock from the Natural History Museum of Jamaica.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you very clearly.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, today has just been chock full of information. And I have to start my vote of thanks, just thanking the audience for staying with us. And I noticed that we don't only have, members of staff and the general public, but we have some students from the schools that participate in some of our programs and the teachers as well. So we're really thankful that they've stayed on with us. And guys, even if you weren't here today, this video will be posted on one of our channels so that you can look back and see what you missed. All right, so thank you for joining in. Our guest presenter today, Miss Ingrid Parchment, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure for us to be working with CCAM, and her presentation was more than enlightening and informative. Thank you, Miss Parchment, for not telling us only how to conserve these areas, but telling us about the importance as well. And all of us have a role to play in conserving our wetlands. I'm encouraging persons to go like what she told us, to go where the information is and to share the information when we get it. Ms. Parchment also spoke about her team and how the efforts of her team, so it's not just herself. And I just like to thank a number of persons who have worked behind the scene to make sure that we have this, that this day became a reality. The CCAM members, thank you so much for participating and joining us today. The Natural History and IOJ team, and we have some persons in Natural History, our Education Department, the Botany Department, and Zoology Departments. And these persons made sure that the idea didn't just stay an idea, but that it actually became reality. There are other partners as well who may be with us today. NEPA, that's the National Environment and Planning Agency, and the Forestry Department. We're thankful for those persons as well. The media, I understand that JIS is with us today, so we're very, very, very thankful for that. Now, as a government agency, one of our main things is having funding, right? We don't have all the resources that we'd love to have, so we're very, very thankful to our funders. Now, this program was brought to you by, and I'm reading it because it's very wordy, but it's called our Biodiversity Awareness Program. And it's a project developed by our Natural History Museum of Jamaica in collaboration with the Jamaican Infrastructure Operator Limited and funded by Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited, Highway 2000 East-West. And that's just a long, fancy word, a sentence for the persons who run the highway. And we're extremely, indebted to them for providing funds for this. Now, I'm sure, and Dana, you have to tell me how people can put up their reactions, but I am really grateful for our host today, Miss Swaby. Miss Swaby, I heard so much about you and you did not disappoint. So thank you very much for your energy, for keeping us engaged, for keeping us, and I can't say awake because it was a very exciting webinar. We've learned so much, but thank you. And Eartha, in our introduction, introduced you as an avid wetland advocate. And I think just based on your presentation, just how you, steered this proceeding today, that you've got other persons to become that as well. So again, I don't think I'm leaving anybody out. Eartha, tell me if I am, but just like to thank you all for making this a reality. And I was very happy to be here sharing. All right, so thank you. I don't know if we can't hear you, Dana. Oh,
right. Yes, I began speaking without my microphone unmuted. Okay, thanks again for that moving vote of thanks, and it was really a pleasure sharing in this setting, learning so much. I can't wait to share. Last year, I had the pleasure of being at my alma mater, Black River Primary, sharing with the students the value of wetlands. So now, as you mentioned, that Miss Ingrid said, we're not going to store this information because we're not the mangroves, and this is not carbon. We're not going to store it in our roots and not share. So, but we're definitely, unless we're storing it to remember so that we can share it with others. It was amazing. And I just want to continue encouraging the students online to share, to research, and just, be a part of any activity that gives you the opportunity to learn more and to do more where our wetlands are concerned. It has been a pleasure hosting, as was mentioned before. I want to bid you all a great afternoon. And thanks for sticking and staying with us. And do share the live stream or the completed live stream on our YouTube channel after this.
Thank you everyone for joining us. And so we bid you goodbye until next time.
Bye.
Bye, Miss.